Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of 10 Minute Tuesday. If you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. Today's guest, I have Doug Leal in the building. Doug, what is going on, man?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. Very excited about our conversation here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for taking time out. I know we talked about this before recording, but we connected LinkedIn, SQL Saturdays, different Microsoft, just different areas. I've always seen Doug. I think I followed you and connected, and I just love what you're doing, man.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Strongly believer that everyone at some point in their life they can give it back, right? And I'm blessed to be in a position now that I can give a little bit back, right? Hopefully throughout the years I can give a little bit more back because I've been a lot of people help me, right? So I'm just trying to pay it forward. So yeah, very nice talk with you because we have been in the same conferences, and we never had the opportunity to to chat. So yeah, that's awesome.
Great, great. So, Doug, you mentioned giving back and doing a lot of things. So, really, what compelled you to get into data to begin with?
It was by accident. So as you can tell by my accent, right? I'm not from around here. I'm originally from Brazil. And most of, I don't want to say most of Brazilians, of course, right? But most of my friends, right, growing up, from Brazil, want to be a soccer player,
Yeah.
right? I wanted to be a forward, and then I was too tall, too big to be, to be fast enough to be a forward. And then I start, my position start going back to the field. I ended up as a goalkeeper, and then that didn't turn out the way I wanted. And then at the time, right, I wish I had a story that was like, oh yeah, when I was 11, I had a computer and things like that, but it was not my case, right? I had some odd jobs in high school and things like that, and then I was like, okay, I need to find something that, I need to find a profession, right? And I was like, computer science, right, programmer, and then I went to school. I started going to college for computer science, and my first job, was not related to data at all. It was as a Java developer. But that didn't last long. So I stayed as a Java developer for a year, working for a consulting company in Brazil right out of college. And then I start doing some reports. I start doing some, writing some queries. And I fell in love with it. So like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to work on the plumbing, right? I want to bring data from, from point A to point B, do the transformations, and then somebody else with better design skills than me can do the report and can do
Yeah.
the dashboards, right? Because that's not me. I tried. I did a lot of ASP development as well. So that's I'm just telling my age here, right? Way back in the day. But yeah, since I started working like writing SQL, and with SQL Server 6.5, Oracle 7,
Wow.
I fell in love with it, right? I was like, okay, I don't want to work on the front end. I want to work on the back end, right? I want to transform the data. I want to start building, dimensional models and things like
Yeah.
that. Get data from 20 tables and put into one table where, the report has all the information it needs. So yeah, it was by accident, right? I bumped into that project that at the time it was a ETL developer, right? Now it's data engineer, but it was ETL developer at the time, and I fell in love with it.
Wow. So such a journey, right? So picked up, started soccer, but then he was like, I need to get a job. And I like coding, right? I want to be the back end of plumber. How do I connect these things together? And then now you're doing a lot of great stuff, in the Oracle, SQL Server, Fabric, just that whole world. So, that's fantastic that you got into data in that way and phenomenal that you're there. So this is one of my favorite questions because I think it gives a little bit of personality of like the person. And thinking about this, right? This doesn't have to be data related, but what's been your least favorite job to date? And you could be like, I shoveled whatever out,
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. So just what's
No,
been your
I
least favorite job?
I have a few. I have a few because
Okay.
in high school, right? I was also working, while going to high school, and I had a lot of different jobs. But my number one least favorite job was I used to work for a warehouse. It was a transportation company, where we used to go to this warehouse and we would wait over there for work. and and then sometimes we would have no work. Sometimes we would have work. And when I say work, is some trucks,
Yeah.
18 wheelers with ship containers would come to this warehouse, and then we would have to unload by hand, right? There's no
Wow.
forklift. No, no, no. It was,
Oh, no way, really?
and yeah, and then I never knew what would be inside of the ship container, right? Sometimes would be small boxes with batteries, right? That was easy. Sometimes was those big boxes that weigh twice my size, right? It's like, okay, how are we gonna carry this? And but that was not the worst part. The worst part was the weather, because it was on a warehouse, and it was in Brazil, and it's hot during the
Yeah.
summer in Brazil. So yeah, that was not fun when you're unloading ship containers by hand on very humid weather, 100 degrees. So and that what led me to, so like, okay, I need to figure something else out, right? Because I'm not gonna last here for more than a few years. But yeah, that's how I ended up. So like, okay, I need to figure out a way to go to college to get into a profession, right?
Yeah.
But that was my last favorite job, because there was a lot of manual labor, and under the weather, right? Sometimes it was raining, and then you had to go outside of the warehouse to unload the ship container, bring the stuff inside. So yeah, that was definitely my number one.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. That's backbreaking, literally labor, to
Yeah.
try and pick up that stuff. All right. So there's a philosophy I live by. It's called failing forward, right? Everything that you go through in life, you don't fail at. It's just a lesson for it. So with that in mind, what would you consider your biggest failure, quotation marks around failure, and what did you really learn from that experience?
Yep, yep. There's several, more than we have time for, but here I would say recently, right? When I say recently, is over the last, I don't know, 10 to 5 years. It's just underestimating the organizational resistance to change, right? Sometimes we, come in and we propose a change without looking at the bigger picture, right? Without
Yeah.
looking at every role, every department that change will affect. So so yeah, that's something that open my eyes to spend more time on change management, more time working with not only with the technology but with the people that has the institutional knowledge to
Yeah.
make sure that whatever change we are proposing is is actually going to help them and help the organization, right? Yeah, that's definitely an one that kind of new one, right? Over the last 10 to 5 years that I've
Yeah.
been paying more attention to that, but it's very valuable.
It is, and it's actually a good thing that you brought up because I found myself thinking about that, right? Because you mentioned your background similar, right? We start with coding, right? Processes and information and data and plumbing and different things. And so, sometimes implementing a technology change, you kind of forget some of the processes and human beings and stuff that are affected by these different impacts or different systems that we want to bring in and stuff. So I think even with AI, and I don't want to make this AI podcast, but I feel like what you mentioned, with some of these AI implementations and systems, like I don't know if a lot of people are thinking about some of the people that are going to be affected by it as well.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, that was exactly where I was trying to get with that, right? So like, especially when implementing, machine learning solutions, AI solutions, like, okay, how is that really, moving the organization and the department forward, right? Instead of, hurting people, if you will, or just not having the desired outcome, right? Because there's a lot of hype out there, right? So
Yeah,
part of my my work and my, I don't know, mission, even on a few sessions, at SQL Saturday, is just to cut through the hype, right? What is useful, what is not, right? So yeah,
love it.
completely agree with you there.
All right, so thinking about this, my intended target audience with a lot of these are people who are just starting out in data or they're trying to transition and get into data. So think about that in mind. What's one piece of advice you give someone who's just starting out in their career?
Um, I know that sounds cheesy, but I'm gonna go for it because it's been very, very true for me. And that's what I teach my, I'm trying my best to teach my daughters that, which is never stop learning, right? uh, it is so powerful for you to have some type of discipline where, because it's very tempting, right? To just go like, oh, Netflix, right? I love Netflix. They have a lot of good shows, right? And my daughter, she loves Netflix as well. A lot of good shows, right? So we are in the same boat, but it's like, okay, let's dedicate some time on our days, right? To just read something, learn about something new. And it doesn't have to be technology related, right? But just keep learning because that pays off, in the long term, right? And that's why I'm always, telling my daughter, and I tell everybody else, like, so like, it doesn't underestimate the power of always keep learning, because it is something that, it's kind of snowball effect, right? If you have that discipline to dedicate, let's say, whatever you can afford, right? If it is
Yeah.
10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour every day to learning something new, you multiply that by 365 days, right? Multiply that by a year, and then by a couple of years, I mean, the leap that you can do
Yeah.
in your if you're using that for your career or personal growth is, tremendous, right? And I'll give you one example here. I'm still getting better at public speaking, right? That's one of the reasons why I go to, all those events, but there was a huge gap, right? And I remember doing this presentation, and it was really, really bad. It was awful, right? And then it was something like, okay, I need to get better at it, right? I bought a bunch of books about becoming, a better presenter. I'm still working on it, still working through the books, right? But yeah, I think it's that mindset to say like, okay, how can I learn more about that, right? Always keep learning, and it doesn't have to be related to technology, right? It could be becoming a better speaker, it could be becoming a better writer, something that I need as well. But anyways, there's so many new things to learn there, right? So
Yeah.
it's just always keep learning.
No, I love that. I love that. And I like the point that you mentioned because I think people, especially like I'm a younger dude, younger, I'm 39, but I feel like our millennial generation, like microwave at times, right? If I read this book in 1 hour, I should consume and automatically know the medallion architecture, right? Or something like that, right? If
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
doing this thing, but like calling out the emphasis on like continuous 20-minute, 30-minute, hour, like just doing it over time and the leap that you make is just fantastic. And then I'll ask this like, kind of to a follow up, as you started speaking, have you seen some of those skills become cross functional in your day in and day out? So the better you are at presenting in front of an audience, like you might be better at leading meetings or something.
Oh yes, absolutely. And that's something that, if there is, I'm pretty sure, some people are going to be watching this, but I highly recommend, because I'm a strongly believer that everyone has something to share, right? I mean, you might not realize that, but everyone does, right? Pretty sure a lot of people out there have run into challenges on their job that, I'm pretty sure I'm going to run into that tomorrow or next month or next year. So I would love to learn that. And as I started presenting, yes, it became better at, in-person meetings and even on, Zoom meetings, because I used to be really, really, really shy, right? And I was very insecure about my English as well, being 100% honest here with
Mm.
you. So, and even enable me to apply for a position at Seminole State College, right, where I'm teaching now as well. I'm an adjunct professor there. So it gave me the confidence to go to the next level, right? So like, okay, and that's something that I was passionate about. I'm always passionate about, the academics, right? I think that's gonna be my retirement plan at some point, right? Far away, I'm not even close to being retired, but I would love to, at some point just teach for, a living. But it gave me the confidence to start that, right? So I highly recommend. There's a lot of great events there. SQL Saturdays is a very popular one. Um, think about like one challenge that you faced last year, last month, or you're currently facing, how you solve that. Put together a quick presentation, and also, if I may, I'm just gonna ask something else here, or provide another recommendation. Ask for help. You
Yeah.
know, most of the speakers out there, I reach out to them when I was starting. So like, hey, can you review my presentation? Can you give me a few pointers? And I never got a no as an answer, right? The community there, of the speakers, the community that runs those events, they're very friendly. They do that for of the willingness of their heart, right? They're not paid for that. Same way that you're doing this here, right? So um, ask for help. Ask
Yeah.
for like, hey, I have this presentation here. Can you provide some feedback? So I highly recommend. I know it's a very long answer to your
No,
questions,
it's great.
but I apologize for that because I'm very passionate about that. It made me grow a lot as personal growth, and also enable me to grow on my career as well. So find someone that you really like their presentation and reach out like, hey, can I'm planning a presentation here, can you review, can you give me some feedback? And I never heard a no. I'm not saying that you're not going to hear a no, because people are
Sure.
busy as well, right? They have their
Yeah.
families and work and all that kind of stuff, but usually everyone that I reach out to, they're super friendly and willing to help. So highly recommend.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Ask for help. That's the biggest piece. I think the next person, especially in this industry, is looking to bring the next person up. So if you see someone with passion and who's actively trying to grow, the person you're asking for help is likely going to help you out because they want you to be better. All right, Doug, tell me about
Absolutely.
the most influential people in your life and how they made an impact on you.
Oof, it has to be my mom. It has to be my mom. Um, my mom, she had like a fourth grade education, right? Because she was, used to live, in the farm. She just went to school to the fourth grade, and after that, she couldn't go anymore because she was old enough to help, in the fields, in the farm. But she never used that as an excuse for not going out there and working hard,
Yeah.
right? She never complained. So I don't know. I had a great example, and I try never to complain.
Well, shout out to mom. Shout out to the work ethic, that gets passed down for always pushing and persevering, man. So love that. Shout out to Mama Doug. All right. Where can listeners find you at online?
LinkedIn, I think that's the one that I check more often. I'm not big into Twitter or X. I'm there as well. I think it's DLeoDB on X or Twitter. On LinkedIn is Doug Leal. That's the one that are most active. But yeah, if I can be of any assistance, reach out.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks, Doug, for taking time out today, man. I really appreciate you.
Nah, thank you. Appreciate everything you do
Yeah,
for the
thanks,
community.
thanks. And
It's
as I
awesome.
said
Thank you.
in the beginning, if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll talk to y'all next week. Y'all have a great day.